Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. I think I jumped the gun a bit there, Chewy. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, sir?
It was pretty good, though, because it was just your voice coming out of the black.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a crossover. It speaks to a level of quality and of showmanship.
Hi. Oh, there. Back again. Hi. How is everybody? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, last week for us. Already commentary going on in the chats as to what's happening, what's happening and what's happening when and when's happening things and things going. And I'm sure we'll explain this as we go through, but conversations going on, BHN whānau, when do we wrap up for the year? Kiwi Skirt saying Pat's on to it, introduces Vid, pre-records it because they were having a conversation as to what happens through Christmas. So just to give you all a heads up now, and we'll explain it again as we go through the week, so don't panic about it. We are doing our last live show on Thursday of this week. I believe that's the 18th. And Magenta and Emily will join us for that show, so it'll be a bit of a wrap. I was actually looking, Chewy, at last year's last show, and we opened up Discord. So maybe we'll do that again, yeah, on the last one and give people a chance to jump in and have a chat and say Merry Christmas and all that kind of stuff as well. So that'll be Thursday. Today I've made, I think, 6 shows. I think I made 4 Gary Payenda podcasts. I made the Friday night Adu show. So that's now been made. And I made this show, so to speak. Well, I prepared this show. So this Thursday night will be our last show of BHN Live, but this Friday night we will be playing the public event that we had in Dunedin a couple of Fridays ago. It's not perfect. There's a few times where there's missing camera angles and stuff, but we were really just kind of having a play and getting things ready and yada, yada, yada. And if you're a patron, well, then you may have already seen it, because it's up on Patreon right now for people who are patrons. What you see on Patreon is like an 85% cut, a 90% cut. There's a few differences. Like, for example, if you're watching it on Patreon, when people ask questions from the audience, the camera stays on the panelists, but Emily took some shots of people asking the questions and I just cut that in today. So Thursday's night will be slightly different from the one that's on there, although the content will all be exactly the same. Speaking of patrons, let's say a huge thanks and a welcome to Adeli, to Big Olby, to P Waka Waka, to Daniel, to Edward McCall, and to Karen Molyneux, who have all become patrons in the last wee while. Yes. We had a target of 500 patrons by Christmas. I think we got to 498, and as of tonight we are 496. So will we get there? Who knows?
So close.
So close. But remember, actually, don't become a patron just to hit the number 500, because then people drop out again and it drops below. It was just an arbitrary number that we decided we'd throw out there. I'll say it one time and I'll say it now, and this will be the only time I say it in the show, is that if you're thinking about joining on board, if you're thinking about being a part of what we do, if you're thinking about being a patron, then have a think about the next 12 months, because it's less helpful having people jump in and jump out super quick. We are planning events for next year. I am talking about events around the country. Now, I'll be careful. I'm saying talking about, meaning I don't know if I have we have the capacity to do that yet, but we're in talks about that. But one thing that has been confirmed is there will be a Waitangi presence on Waitangi. I will be going up and doing sort of similar to what we did last year, roving reporter, and that's done thanks to our patrons. we are able to plan forward, look forward, and go, okay, this is important. Everyone has said how much they want us to do Waitangi, so let's do Waitangi. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So if you're interested in becoming a part of who we are, patreon.com/Big Hairy News is the way to do it. Oh, look, let's be honest. If we make it to 500, that'd be cool. It'd be a nice little milestone. But I'd rather people just thought about it seriously and then decided what they wanted to do when they're wanting to do it, and if you wanted to be a part of what we do. I also want to say, because we promised you last week, that if you got an order in on the BHN shop, bhn.nz, then I think it's just /shop, that one there. Yep, there it is. That I promised everybody that I would get their orders in the post today. All of them are gone. So all of them have been sent. Everyone should have there's one that got left in the mailbox. So if you're in that Dunedin, waiting in Dunedin, you might have yours already. But everyone else has been on it's not technically a courier. It's the way you do post these days, but it's called economy post, and it has a courier ticket, and I don't know how it works. Some places get it the next day. When we sent out some last week, and then I updated everybody with their tracking number the day after, some had already arrived. So it seems if you go kind of Dunedin to Wellington, or Dunedin to Auckland, or Dunedin to Hamilton, they seem to get there almost the next day, certainly within a couple of days. And if you're in one of the smaller cities, it might take 3 or 4 days to get to you. But that's sort of how it goes. I saw at New Zealand Post today that they reckon the 18th of December is the last day that you can send it by economy post, which is what we send, to still have it arrive by Christmas Day. I'm not going to make any promises, as in delivery times, but what I will promise is that if we get your order 15, 16, 17, so in the next 3 days, unless it's a product that we're running short on, I think we have to reorder black large t-shirts, for example. If we have it in stock and you order in the next 3 days, I will have it on the courier economy post tracking number on the 18th. So we will do what New Zealand Post says that you can do to receive it by Christmas, but I'm not prepared to make that guarantee just because I don't want to let people down. But I will guarantee that we'll get it on the courier in the post on the day New Zealand Post say will be to you by Christmas. That's clear as mud, isn't it? It's clear as mud. So yeah, so you can go check that out if you want to check that out. They're all there. The new enamels and stuff are all there. There they are. Look at them, sexy as, looking good. And yeah, that's about it. Anything else, Chewy, to start off the show? What have I forgotten? I've said hello to the Patreon.
Yeah, look, I just want to say about you going to Waitangi, I was very, very hopeful that I was going to be able to go to Waitangi, but the real world has conspired against me. Yeah. So now I have to say I'm going to join Christopher Luxon by skipping Waitangi.
Is he going to skip it next year, though? Has he announced that yet?
Yeah, recently on one of the in-depth, very explorative shows that he goes on, the shows that do the hard questions, Mike Hosking or whatever, he said, why would I go to Waitangi? It's just drama and soapboxing. So
the thing that's most bullshit about that, like last year he tried to do we can go to other places for Waitangi, and you're right, like most of the politicians did that were there, because the politician porphyry is the day before Waitangi. The politician porphyry and the politician meeting on the treaty grounds is on the 5th, and there was lots of politicians who were there on the 5th who went somewhere else on Waitangi Day to celebrate Waitangi Day. So it's I'm on some level I'm quite glad he's not saying, I'm going to be somewhere else on Waitangi because we should spread ourselves around, because that was a horse shit reason last year. So at least he's not doing it again. I mean, that's give baby his bottle, give him one bit of credit. Yeah. No. So okay. No,
I'm not going to.
Refuse to. All right.
No credit.
So this is our last week. Thursday night's going to be, if there's any really big news story, like Christopher Luxon wears a toupee or something, we might feature that. But other than that, it'll be a bit of a hangout. We'll give you, like we did last year, all the numbers for the last year, where we're going, what we're planning, all those kind of bits and bobs as well. Tonight on the show, we are going to have a look at one of those stories, because we featured that issue last week where Jack Tame was like, Luxon won't come on Q&A. And the funny thing was, he went on RNZ in the weekend, where we got questions like, how are the energy levels? In depth,
Jesus,
biting commentary.
What's happening with RNZ lately? Seems to be a pretty dramatic change.
They're all woke, aren't they? Well, that's actually something else that we're going to talk about tonight. Paul, the other one, Barlow, is about to join us. And I was watching The Collective last night. I'm sure you all were. And Paul pulled out some research that made me go, that's really interesting. And it kind of spits in the face of this woke media narrative through this little thing they call research and metrics and numbers. And so I thought we should definitely talk about that. So we're going to get Paul in just a couple of secs to do that. And then finally, this Bondi shooting. Yesterday I had TikTok open. I was flicking through it, and I saw this imagery of all these people running upstairs away from a beach. And I was in my head, I was like, what is going on here? And I was like, shark attack. And if there was a shark attack, you wouldn't be running away from the beach. You'd be getting out of the water. And I couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't figure it out. And I sort of went, oh, okay. And I left it. And then within an hour, all these reports start coming out about a Bondi shooting. And I'm like, oh, shit. That's what I saw on TikTok. Like within minutes of it happening, not the event, which I'm sure everyone has seen since. I'm really keen to talk about it. And I'm really keen to talk about, I won't keep my powder dry. I'll wet my powder, Chewy. About there's going to be a narrative of Islam versus the Jewish community. That's going to be a narrative. Now, I want to make one really clear point. The man that we've all seen who tackled the gunman, who is being credited today for saving, quote, dozens of lives, is a Muslim. So I really want to get this out there, because there is going to be that narrative by dishonest actors about, oh yeah, Muslim terrorists, another Muslim this, Muslim that, Islam this, Islam that. Well, yes, those shooters may say they adhere to a Muslim faith. They may say that, but so does the person who saved, quote, dozens of lives. So I just want to be really clear that we don't allow the narrative to be stolen by dishonest actors about, this is just typical of the Muslim community, because it's not, obviously, because the last time this happened in Australia was 35 years ago, and that wasn't a Muslim attack. So I'm just very keen to kind of keep that real, if you know what I mean. We will be talking about that. I have got a story to show and some footage and stuff. Do you want to say anything briefly before we get Paul on about that, Chewy? Or are you going to keep your powder dry?
I think I'll be the one that keeps my powder dry this time around. There's a lot of thoughts that have got to form around this, and yeah, we'll talk on it later.
Yes, sir. Okay, so let's get into this, shall we? I was watching The Collective last night, and the lovely Paul Barlow brought up some research that he was citing. And what I didn't realize at the moment, and I realized since talking to him last night and this morning, is that the research is his research that he has done. Some research which is a structural analysis of non-party political actors in New Zealand media, called The Asymmetry of Influence. There is some very interesting, top line information that we heard about last night. I wanted to drill into a bit deeper, and I thought the best way to do it is to get the researcher on himself. So let's welcome to the show, Paul, the other one, Barlow. Kia ora, sir.
Kia ora. How's everyone doing tonight?
Well, I mean, I'm doing okay, but there's some heavy shit out there at the moment that does make you kind of go, I mean, how often can you say what is happening in this world? What is happening to this world? How often can you say that and just continue on? That shooting, for example, the reason it's worldwide news, well, there's two reasons. One is that it's focusing on a Jewish community and the anti-Semitism label has been put on it, rightfully so. Let's get that clear. But the other reason it's been put on is because it happened in Australia. And over the weekend, the 370th mass shooting of the year happened in America. So we don't talk about that one, but it happened in Australia, so the world is talking about it. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons it's being talked about is it's atypical. That means opposite. Atypical is opposite and typical is same. It's atypical for places outside of America. Yeah. So I'm doing good. I'm busy. Looking forward to getting a break, but the world is fucked.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
should enjoy the break while you can, because
Yeah.
next year is going to be an absolute mess. If it's a
Yeah.
mess now, it's going to be even worse next year because we have the election.
Yeah. Are you
In
suggesting
case
that the
anybody
world?
wasn't aware.
Are you suggesting that the world's going to be worse than fucked? Is the world ending next year or something? What are you suggesting?
Oh, it might actually be an improvement if it did in some ways. There'd be less people around to bugger things up if that happened. I think next year is actually a really important one for us to learn about how we get manipulated, because I think that's something that we're lacking at the moment. It's something I noticed during the local body election. People are, I hate to say it, but people are dumb. A person might be smart, but a group of people are dumb. You take the number of people in that crowd and you divide that number by the average number of the lowest person's IQ. You know, they're not a smart thing, a group of people. And elections show us that over and over, because people listen to messaging from politicians, from media, from friends and family that's highly skewed, and it's really frustrating to see. It's really smart, really engaged people get it wrong and being fed stuff that's wrong. So for me, I think that's a really important thing for us to worry about next year, just in general, not just in terms of media, but knowing that there is an election going forward and that there's at least two parties that we've got there who are nasty, nasty organizations that go out of their way to vilify and harm specific community groups. And that's not the sort of thing we want to see in this country. And currently they're partners in the coalition. So I think, it's going to be a big, long one for us next year.
Now, you showed some research last night about media in New Zealand. I've got the research that you've written. This doesn't have the graphs and stuff on it. So do you want to share any of your stuff from your end, or should we just talk to it? I've got all the stuff, but
I might need to actually bring it up to share
stuff.
it from my end, because I don't have it in front of me right this second.
Okay.
See, this is how prepared I was. I was actually at Costco this afternoon when you sent out the link. I've been that disorganized today.
The asymmetry of influence. Tell us, when you're doing research, like obviously top secret, high level, influential research, do you go out asking a question and then that's it? Or do you go out looking for an answer? Like I already know you don't do the latter, because that means you would skew it.
That wouldn't be the way to do the research, but you can start off with a supposition of what you're going to be looking for. For me, I've always known that our media is right-leaning. It's just something that I've always been brought up with when I've studied it, because I have a master's in film and television from Wintec and a Bachelor of Arts with honours from the University of Waikato in screen and media. This is my academic background that I've been dealing with for years. And when you go through and you learn how to recognize what is actually right-wing media, how it focuses more on individual responsibility and on corporate information over collective responsibility and outcomes, you can see that our media has always kind of leaned that way, but it's felt in the last sort of 5 to 10 years like it's been shifting to me. So I wanted to see whether or not it was me getting a little bit older and a little bit more cynical, or whether or not it was actually something that we could measure and we could work out what it was that was causing that to happen. And there were a lot of factors that sort of played into it. COVID was a really big one, for example. It was this flashpoint for people where, suddenly there's the public interest journalism fund. So, it's a conspiracy. Jacinda's bribing the media. And before that, we were getting a lot of influence coming in from the States that was starting to get people to question how media works and the narratives and things like that. But we were also seeing these lobby groups like the Taxpayers Union and the Free Speech Union that were set up specifically to push certain narratives that tie in most closely with the ACT Party. There is actually, I think it's something like 7 or 8 different members from the 2002 ACT Party list who are now directly involved or have got some kind of linkage with disinformation groups or far-right media outlets. So you've got like the Newmans, for example, Frank and Muriel, who were on that list. They run the New Zealand Centre for Political Research. You've got Stephen Franks, the lawyer. He was the person who trained up Jordan Williams. So from him, you get your Free Speech Union, your Taxpayers Union. There was Joanne Reeder. She currently runs a conspiracy page in Hamilton called City Watch, which 4 of their new councillors have been regular commenters on. So there's a weird network.
Yikes.
Rodney Hyde, leader of the party in 2002, he's a host on Reality Check Radio. So there's all of this long-term influence that's been feeding into the way that we see media now, that's been pushing the media to the right, and people don't realize it. It's the frog in the boiling pot sort of scenario. So I wanted to measure it more than anything. I wanted to see just how bad it was.
It's funny to hear you say, like, obviously we don't disagree with you. It's funny to hear you say that you've always known the media to be sort of right-coded, right-leaning, right-wing, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously not the narrative that many inside the media or many commentators outside the media pointing in would have us know. So
No.
without even looking at the research, as you've grown, like in the last 20 years, what kind of things do you see that lead you to the conclusion, I think this is right-wing coded?
So a lot of it, because I grew up in a rural area, it's national hard. A lot of the local media that had then, which we don't have now because, the media sphere is shrinking, that was focusing a lot on your individual responsibility and individual actions, as well as your corporate, the dairy factories are in this way, Anchor's having this happen, Fonterra's the big thing. It was very much right coded because you're dealing with a right audience, farmers and rural folk and that kind of thing. But that local media feeds into our regional media, which feeds into our national media. It's all part of a process that we call the propaganda model, and where individual media information comes from in the morning and how it feeds through to the day and impacts us what we see at night. But because we've had that loss of local media, we've had to amalgamate things a bit more, which means the information our regional media and our national media are putting out now is a lot more generalized, but there's no resources for it. The staff aren't there. And so you have groups that come and going, hey, here is something that I prepared for you earlier. You don't have to do any work on it. Just go and present it as is. And that's where places like the TPU have stepped in and actually pushed us to the right. And people don't realize it because they're just presented with stuff that they've been trained up on to believe is completely impartial and has been well researched and has been put out and looked after by media who knows what they're doing.
Sure, you got any thoughts before we get into some data in that?
Oh, I've got so many thoughts. This is something that is a relatively new change in my experience. We didn't seem to have the plethora of think tanks and public policy commentators and that sort of thing, even, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I also want to acknowledge it's seeing that and its effect on the media is what has essentially given birth to projects like BHN, like what you're doing, that there is a reaction to it that is only 5 years old, tops, of left-wing commentators going, we kind of need to put our thumb on the scale here to get it back somewhere. And it seems to have really hit a vein with our listeners of this is what is missing from traditional media at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a really valid thing to look at because we are a smaller country, a smaller sphere of influence in the media, and I think in a lot of the bigger markets and that sort of thing, what an excellent place to test things here in New Zealand.
I know when you talk about things like the Atlas Group, there's always going to be people on the right who sit there go, oh yeah, conspiracy theory kind of thing. But there is very much a dedicated streamline of the way that Atlas connected groups in this country in particular work and approach the media. So I think at the very least, that's something that people need to be aware of, that there are those connections. And it sort of filters down as well to places like organizations like Groundswell. They are very pro the way that they want to do farming. And they might deny that they have those links to these other Atlas linked organizations. But, the website was set up by the campaign company, by Jordan and his group. The Groundswell people paid, I think it was $300,000 to the campaign company to campaign on behalf of political parties during the last election. So there's this influence that's coming through in other lobby groups and other ways that people don't realize. And because we're such a small market, people don't know that it's there, which is the really frustrating part. We've always all been taught, media is what's presented on TV, and for a vast majority of the time that most of us have been alive, that's what it was. News was 6 o'clock. You sat down, you watched Simon. He told you what was going to happen. And because he said it was going to happen, that's what was reality. But it's certainly changed a lot since then.
I've got something to show you, right? Just kind of talking about, you mentioned just then about sort of uncritically platforming things. I don't know enough academically whether this is true or not, but answer me this question. I'm making an accusation, but I want the experts to try to fill this out. There was a story on Stuff today talking about the gunman in Australia. And it said this, Naveed Akram, 24, was apprehended at the shooting alongside one other alleged shooter. One of these individuals has died, full stop. This masthead understands Akram is not the deceased. Now, I thought that you're supposed to replace the word this masthead, as in whoever's printing it, this masthead, so it should be Stuff understands Akram is not the deceased. Speaking with this masthead, speaking with Stuff, as police surrounded her house, and it looks to me like not only are we talking about necessarily kind of a right-coded narrative being pushed through, but they are literally just cutting and pasting without even reading them and putting them up on the website. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's why I pulled this up, because it looks to me, I've never seen any article anywhere in the world ever use the word this masthead referring to itself. That's where you put the name of the publication in there. So this was on Stuff this morning, and if what I'm saying is correct, and I'm saying if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if this, what someone in Stuff's done is they've literally got something off the, I don't know, the telex, whatever they use these days, and just gone copy, paste, go live. Haven't even read it to change the wording of it at all. First of all, is that right about how they're using the words this masthead? And if it is, shit.
Yeah. Technically, this masthead is the name of the paper, so that would make sense. And sharing news stories isn't new. You've got Reuters, you've got the Associated Press. They do content for all over the world.
Oh, they do it here. ODT shares with New Zealand Herald. Herald shares with ODT. Like RNZ goes on stuff. That happens all the time. But that hasn't even been read.
No, it's just been cut and paste. That's actually one of the problems that media has when it comes to something dramatic like this happening. You want to get the information out. You want people to be informed, and the public want to be informed, but you don't have the information. It creates what we call an information vacuum. So that's where it gets filled in with other stuff. And so you're rushing to get things out. It's where Brian Tamaki, for example, put out his bullshit about immigration after the attack last night, because it's Brian Tamaki. He's a horrible, violent person who has called for violence and had violence done in his name, but this is a bad thing according to him, and we should do what he says. David Seymour put something out about it as well. And the comment section that David Seymour has following his comment is full of horrible, racist, anti-Islamic stuff because it's David Seymour's followers. And they're filling in the information vacuum that's there. When a newspaper is doing something like that, it's because they want to get the information out. They should know to change it, but it might be something that's just happened so quickly they haven't had a chance to do it.
So it's this drive to be first to get the stuff out there. Whereas the truth actually, like when you're talking minutes, you don't need to be first. You need to be right. Like we often talk here, Paul, about bias. Like I don't care about bias as long as you're accurate. I care about accuracy. Yeah. We have a bias. We're open about it. But as long as we're accurate, then the bias doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's actually also a really uniquely left-wing, right-wing mindset. When you're talking to somebody on the left, they understand that there is a difference between bias and facts. When you talk to somebody on the right, they tend to get the two confused. And they seem to think if your facts don't agree with what they believe, then you are clearly biased against them. It's a really interesting dichotomy to sit down and watch. And you can see it when you're talking to people about simple things, left-right stuff, that they will sit there and get the two very heavily confused. Yeah.
I would like to have a look more detail at some of your research and stuff now, because one of the most important things I heard last night, and obviously it's a small snapshot of your overall work you've done on this, is the locations, or outlets is probably a better word, the outlets, the media outlets that receive information from both political sources and non-political sources, and then how that
Mhm.
information, especially from the non-political sources, gets used to drive the narrative of that media outlet. So maybe we can speak to the outlet-specific saturation estimates. Explain what you did, how you did it, and what you found.
Okay, so what happened was every month, in every week, there would be one day that I'd sit down and basically go through and count the stories. A very manual labor kind of thing. And what I found is that when you're dealing with political parties, most of the outlets are actually pretty even in how they get that information out. How they present it's different, but it's even in getting that information out.
So the
When it came
Greens
to-
press release gets used, ACT's press release gets used, Labour's press
Pretty
release
much.
gets used, Te Pāti Māori's press release gets ignored. Used.
Yeah, exactly. Like it,
Yeah.
to be fair, Te Pāti Māori was actually the outlier when it came to the political party research that isn't in the report. They have nowhere near the reach in terms of the other parties, and it was the only political party that actually had less content used than the Taxpayers Union.
Right. Wow. Okay. So that's when you're talking
Yeah.
about the political source being a
Mhm.
political party,
Yeah.
pretty even across the board ish.
Yes.
And then you go to the
Yeah.
political sources that are not
Yeah.
political parties.
Exactly.
What are we seeing and hearing?
We see a massive over-reliance on the Taxpayers Union and Curia because they've created this media content piece that they literally hand to these media outlets. But they've also created an ecosystem that means that when they get a phone call from a producer going, we need somebody here to talk about this thing you've presented to us, they've got somebody there in a minute. They've got it prepared and organized, and they've got this whole ecosystem set up so that they can be seen as the people setting the narrative. And from there, everyone else is running to play catch up. They're really heavily used on outlets like News Talk and the platform because they're talkback. You know, it's constantly needing somebody to fill in a space, to talk to something. And if you've got somebody who's willing to stand and do that at the drop of a hat, they're going to be the people that you get on. So they're the ones that end up being platformed. And it helps that they are in the same ideological sphere. You know, the News Talk and the platform are both very much right-wing outlets, and they're very much wanting to talk about the narrative that's being put forward by the TPU. The Herald's a little bit different, and that's mostly because it's print first before it goes out into any kind of talkback or video stuff. But that's changed a little bit more recently with the introduction, is it now with Ryan Bridges, whatever their breakfast show is. Same with Radio New Zealand. Right up until about 6 to 8 months ago, they were actually more in line with what we were seeing with Stuff. And now they've moved a lot further into taking things directly from these organizations and printing them verbatim without pushback. And the one that they tend to use the most is actually the New Zealand initiative. So they're printing a lot of their stuff. They're putting a lot of their stuff online as here's a piece from the New Zealand initiative, here's research from the New Zealand initiative, and there's no counter to it, which becomes really problematic. But if you talk to RNZ about finances, for example, 9 times out of 10, they'll get a quote from somebody like Nikki Noboat, and then they'll go and talk to Craig, and they'll get a counterpoint. They're quite good at that sort of balance, but they're getting worse at really partisan information going out. Whereas Stuff is actually really good at going and getting that balance and not taking the bait quite so much as the rest of them. So Stuff is technically our most trusted news source. It's our largest read news source, and it seems to be the one that has the least amount of falling for the clickbait from the right.
That's fascinating because, of course, people on the right, and I'm thinking of a particular melted pile of pancake batter, all they ever talk about is the woke. Stuff is the wokest, and I held your trust and they're woke, and they got public money and they're woke. Look, I'm a bit slow, Paul. I need you to explain one thing to me.
Sure.
So what we're looking at right now is this graph that says Taxpayers Union, Free Speech Union, Taxpayers Union, Free Speech Union. I need to put those speech marks around that. When outlets refer to non-party pressure groups, outlet is the blue. Now, the 0, 20, 40, 60, 80 across the bottom, just explain what that is. So are you saying, okay, so this is the thing that I need to clarify. Are you saying that 80% of the information that the Taxpayers Union and the Free Speech Union provide to News Talk ZB, they then use? Or are you saying that it drives 80% of their narrative?
It drives 80% of their narrative.
What?
Or it's mentioned in 80% of their content. So it's usually designed to drive the narrative. Yeah, it'll be Kerry Woodham sitting down going, oh, did you hear about the Free Speech Union? So-and-so is being cancelled because of such and such, which is how the Free Speech Union gets its information out there. It tends to work very much on that, let's create a little bit of controversy and then that's going to get us coverage. The Taxpayers Union is the one that tends to be the most consistently mentioned because every month there's that poll is what it boils down to. And sure, the poll is discredited and Curia is not actually part of the regulatory group anymore. And they've been fined or pulled up for just last year on misleading questions and going against the rules of that group or claiming to still be under it. It's a bad poll, but it's the thing that leads the news every month because it's consistent. When TV3 sort of had its little issues and got handed over to Stuff, their polling stopped. TVNZ's polling hasn't always been the most consistent. TPU shows up and here's a Curia poll every month. So here's something consistent that media can deal with. So what it does is it means that there will be stories that get referred back to it. Christopher Luxon, how are things going? We saw the latest Curia poll and, everybody seems to love you for some reason on the Curia poll versus this is the Curia poll and here's the lead story. So it ends up in about 80% of all of their content where they mention a non-political organization in terms of politics.
So where they mention a non-political, so 80% of stories where they mention a non-political or 80% of their stories?
It ends up being 80% of their stories mentioning politics and non-politic groups.
So do we know what that would be like overall? Like how many stories are they doing? I guess what I'm going is how much influence are these guys having on these narratives? Because 80% of the stories might be different from 80% of the stories about political issues.
Yeah. So it actually depends on the outlet for how it impacts the narrative. Something like News Talk ZB, it really heavily impacts that because it's structurally tied into how talkback works. You want to get that interaction. You're trying to get people riled up so people continue to listen. And here's something that's kind of inflammatory that also agrees with what we're saying. What happens here is that union reps tend to go on both News Talk and the platform and they use targets that they're aiming for that the host then come into. So, Chippy, for example, he's been out there talking about a CGT and, how terrible is that? With something like the Herald, it's a little bit different because it's written first. It's text first more than anything else that goes out. So they've got the structural symmetry that you find with talkback, but they have more time to be able to go through and make sure that the information they've got is as accurate as they want it to be. So that's why they have less influence than the two talkback platforms on there. So yeah, it is different for each one of them. Radio New Zealand, for example, their written content and their broadcast content can quite often be very different. So it's about trying to find a balance in there as well.
Not to talk about what do you say? I'm talking about behind the curtain or whatever it is, but that's such a cop out from News Talk ZB. I mean, I can speak from experience. I had to do 6-hour talkback shows in the middle of the night. I never once had the opportunity to get a Taxpayers Union speaker on. I had to find my own stuff and create my own content. So do you know what it just goes to show? It goes to show if that's the case that they're doing that for talkback, it goes to show one of two things. For the platform is they don't have a big enough audience to run a talkback show. But for News Talk ZB, it just shows laziness. Because it's not necessary.
Been taken over by Jim Grennan. So since you were there, it's been taken over by a hard right Canadian who paid for Chantal Baker. Yeah. He was her big sponsor.
Yeah.
So you've got somebody there who we know is willing to pay for disinformation, who wants things handed to him easy, who is looking for ways to cut costs. And here comes Jordan with a whole bunch of information built for him on a platter. Why wouldn't he use it?
I want to say one other thing, then Chewy, I'll shut up and you can take over. So what we're saying literally is someone like Sean Plunkett screams from the rooftops, we can't trust that because it's public money. Money's coming from the public to fund those stories. Whereas what you're telling us is 80% of the non-political party political influence that's going into a place like the platform is coming from Atlas money, is coming from right-wing money. So apparently what he's saying is public money that is out in the public that you can see how it's been used and spent, because I have to show you, is untrustworthy, and backroom handshakes, secret wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that money is fair. Just goes to show the lunacy of the whole thing. Chewy, sir.
Mm-hmm. If you want to see a
there's a couple
really
of
good
things.
example of this in action, actually, have you seen the Media Watch piece in the Herald today?
No.
So they're talking about bias. They're accusing TVNZ of bias because TVNZ did a outside study on the bias of their presentation, and the Ombudsman decided that they needed to update some of the information that they've put out there. The report will never be released. That there's too much commercially sensitive stuff in there. But the framing that the Herald specifically has used on this is screeching about how the competition is clearly biased in the way that they deal with things. The actual article will tell you that most of the things that they are tweaked are minor, and they included making sure you've got more diversity, equity, and inclusion in your actual reporting to get a fairer understanding of what was going on, and to make sure that you're talking to more communities who could be impacted by various stories to make sure you get a fairer chance of looking out there. So the big scary headline, because it's premium, it's behind a paywall, most people are going to base their reaction on that versus the content of the story. And it's just another way that this bias gets put out there in an asymmetrical way that feeds the audience, because the audience is going to make up their mind based on the headlines 85% of the time.
Agreed. Chewy.
So I've got two things that I want to mention. First of all, sort of looping back to that whole this masthead report sort of thing. I agree. Something like this kicks off and it is a rush to just get information out there. But I have seen many examples of stuff just running with whatever the Sydney Morning Herald is putting out.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the reporting that they've been doing has been incredibly sloppy. Just from an editing and grammar point of view, right through to the factual information. Like that sentence that you highlighted, Pat, referring to the shooter's last name, and they're a father and son pairing. And then they say last name is believed to not be the one that's deceased. Well, they're both called Akram. This is a sign that nobody is looking at it. Like they're not, nobody at the Sydney Morning Herald is running through it going, yes, this is factually correct and makes sense, put it out. Nobody from staff on the New Zealand Herald is casting their eye over it to clean it up or clarify some points. And I saw another really good example of this over the weekend with a local, I think it was Stuff, just taking verbatim with no pushback the official US government line on the seizing of the oil tanker off Venezuela. There was no critical thought that just went into it. It just went, yep, it was an illegal freighter and it's been taken, and that's just what we have on the statement. We're not going to look any further into it. We are just going to, what to my eyes look like, we're just going to repeat the narrative to justify going to war again. And that sort of stuff, when you see it, does breed a distrust in the media. Like, because you're like, well, where's the other side of this? I want at least some pushback so I can get a sense of where things lie. The other thing I want to mention, as far as what you've got there about who's getting their stories from where, is this kind of like more factual news reporting, or are you considering the opinion piece writers?
So it's a bit of both, to be honest. So opinions are something that a lot of people mistake for news, but when it comes to overall content and overall narrative that's going out there, it combines the two of them. But the scary part is, if I'm told, look, this is the opinion of the TPU, then I know what I'm reading. It's when they present content from something like the TPU as news uncritically that it becomes really problematic, because clearly it's been made with a very specific bias and very specific perspective in mind. And we don't have anything on the left that does that. All of our content on the left tends to be reactionary. It tends to be downplayed a little bit, and it tends to be factual, so it's boring. And we need to find a way around that.
certainly in that opinion space, I think of Hawkesby,
Yeah.
Hawkesby and Hoskins. So
Yeah.
you have a husband and wife combo that just have a headlock on column inches and airtime. That will just, you got 2 columns for the price of 1 often.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
almost
but they're
doing a
also
tag
used in a
team
really
show.
interesting way within the NZME ecosystem. You can go to the Herald and you might have a premium Hoskins hot take minute or one from his wife. Or you can go to News Talk ZB and get a whole bunch of them for free. But News Talk ZB is slightly further to the right than the stuff they're presenting on the Herald. So they're going to give you the further right stuff for free over the not quite as far right as the free stuff that you pay for. And so it drives people there. It's a really fascinating funnel system to drive people to the far right who then don't realize that they've shifted that way. And that makes it much harder to get to them and try and sell an idea like a universal basic income or a CGT or, not being a shithead to people, because that's very much the attitude that they're being fed for free, that they're told is news.
Yeah. The chat's mentioning Barry Soper and obviously Heather Duplessis Allen as well, being another couple that are dominating that opinion space as well. And it almost seems like,
are they a couple or more like a carer and an elderly gentleman?
I would say a couple in the same way as the best example I've seen. You see it in nature, the deep sea anglerfish. Where the one animal you see is actually 2 animals, the female and then the wizened set of gonads that have become part of her body because she's absorbed him. And I hate this conversation.
Yeah, but I'm going to make it worse.
Now
You ready?
the imagery there.
Yeah. No, I'm going to make it worse. Ready for this one step worse?
Good.
Ready? Are you ready? Here it comes. He got her pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, I told you. That's worse.
I think of this old joke where there's like 100-year-old man and he's married to a 23-year-old, and he's at a doctor's appointment and he says, "Oh, great news! I got my wife pregnant," and the doctor picks up his umbrella and goes bang. Why did you do that? He goes, "Oh, well, if you fell over, it means that someone else shot you." I think I've mangled that joke.
Yeah,
Carry
I'm
on.
just trying to follow it. I'm a bit slow. Anyway.
Somebody else knocked her up.
Right.
Someone's shooting blanks. Someone else did it.
Gotcha.
Not that for legal reasons. Not that that's what I'm saying. But it's gross. It's gross.
Anyway, derailed. Apologies.
Yeah, horrible joke. Sorry.
Where were we at? I totally.
I don't know.
I do apologise.
Well and truly derailed.
The propaganda model I was thinking about as well, Paul. You were talking about how the propaganda model works and how it goes in and then out through the outlets. It's like we're such a small country, we do it in such a small way. Fox News is the best in the world at doing this, the propaganda model. They have their Fox News breakfast show, pass an opinion, and then their afternoon shows go, some outlets are reporting that, and it's them. They're the outlet that's reported in the morning, and they're able to have this ecosystem in and of themselves that just does the propaganda and it feeds itself. And then later on, Sean Hannity gets on and he cites the afternoon guys who have turned it into sort of a story that some media outlets are, and then he turns it into a fact. It just goes like from little opinion to some reporting to this is a fact, just in one little fell swoop within the same company. It's very clever.
How often have you seen Christopher Luxon does a fluffy earpiece on breakfast and suddenly it's news at night because Christopher Luxon said this, so this is what's going to happen. It happens in every media ecosystem, and ours is no different in that respect.
Were you filled with any kind of like hope when you saw this? Like, because what this is showing us, this graph again one more time, is that stuff only has 30% of its non-political, party-driven political news being fed or mentioned by the TPU or the FSU, which sounds good. Does that fill you with hope? Does that make you think stuff is the place to go? Or is it all just bad news?
To a degree. Stuff has its own biases. If you look at something like the local elections, for example, they were very much, Tory bad in Wellington. That was their attitude. Bike lanes, all the scariest thing on the planet. But they also have other tools and mechanisms that they use to change the way people think. So if you are in Wellington and you want to look at something political in the Post, for example, that's paywalled. So, the most political city in the country has paywalled political content, and that kind of thing can change narratives and how people find things. I think for me, the hope actually comes from the fact that we can recognize the patterns, because if we can recognize the patterns, we can work our way around it, and we can educate people that, maybe the Curia poll is not the poll you should be paying attention to. Maybe anything that comes out from the Free Speech Union is not something you should be paying attention to, because we can show you exactly how it works and how it gets information. And I think, if anything, that knowledge weakens the ecosystem, and it makes it easier for people to be a little bit more receptive if they've got that information. Knowledge is always power when it comes to this kind of thing. I also think it gives me hope in that the number of left-wing content creators that I've spoken to about this in the last 24 hours, and like we had conversations last night after the collective, and I've been chatting to a few people about it today. They sit there going,
Great show, by
this
the way.
gives us something to aim at. This gives us something to work around. This gives us some tool set that we can sit there and go, this is really important for people to know, so that the public feels more informed. Because ultimately, the public needs to make informed decisions. And if they're being manipulated when it comes to an election, they're not going to like the outcomes. 2 years after the last time it happened, how are people feeling? We don't want that to happen again.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's I can't believe what time it is. Time flies and all that kind of stuff when you're having fun.
Yeah.
But before we go, Chewy, do you want to wrap with anything or ask anything, or take the position at the end thing? I kind of gazumped your brilliant line of thought before.
No, not at all. I'm just, I really want more balance, and I know that some topics just shouldn't be his opinion A and opinion B, and they both have equal weight. But I think what we're seeing in the media here is one side has money and the other side does not. And
Yes,
that's
that
what's
is a big
carrying the
part of
water, and that's what's forming people's opinions.
Yeah. But I will say, one of the things that's really interesting about our ecosystem that we don't see quite so much overseas is that we've got a player like BHN in the market. What you guys do is you sit down and you take this content that's being created with a right-wing perspective, that's being fed from these right-wing groups, and you give it that leftist spin, which is something that you don't tend to find overseas. You definitely don't find it much in Australia. You certainly don't find it much in the States, where the market is very, very different. And in England, they're still sort of struggling to make that system work for them. It's a unique thing that we have here, and it's a really important thing that we have here. So don't underestimate the amount of impact that you guys have had in creating this ecosystem that so many of us are involved in, because it does make a difference in the end.
Yeah, one of the things I'm a little bit disappointed about when it comes to Waitangi Day, we had plans to do like a creator meetup in that weekend in Auckland, and invite along all the local people on the left who are doing it. That just, it can't happen, unfortunately, now, which is a bit of a bummer, because I think it is important that, we always are of the opinion here that a rising tide lifts all boats, which is why we start things and support things, and why on the BHN site we've got, friends of BHN, and we want the ecosystem that is the left. Like, I think I said last week, they have the money, but we have the mana. A designer actually sent me a copy of a t-shirt, says that would be a great saying. And so we're looking at that, but I agree with that, but it's sad how often money will outbeat the mana in whatever world or whatever political or whatever country you're kind of sitting in. Money seems to be
that's Hobson's Wedge's
ultimate
attitude.
card to play.
They pay for something knowing that paying for it is going to be the thing that gets them the free press. That's how money works for these people. It shows a lack of integrity. And I think we need to point that out at every opportunity. There is no integrity in the way they work.
Hey, Paul, you're doing beautiful work. Thank you for coming and jumping in and joining us tonight. We're really enjoying.
Well, I figured Christopher Luxon must have cancelled on you if you wanted me. So I'm quite happy to take his spot.
Yeah, you just need to shave your head, mate. Do a little thing. No.
Nah, that'll never happen.
We appreciate you, and I know that the people watching and listening appreciate you. It's very evident as to whenever you're in or around what we're doing. The commentary online as to the quality of the team last night, like people talking about the dream team getting together and what a lineup, and it's good. It's real good, and thank you for all the work you've put in up until this point, and we look forward to another 12 months from here. I'm not predicting what's going to happen, other than it's going to be a hell of a ride up to the next election.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll get there. We'll fix things. We'll kick this lot out. Hopefully help Winston retire forever.
I think I was going to say something that could be taken the wrong way, like Death trying to work on that, but I think Winston Peters has probably gambled with Death a few times, and Winston Peters always seems to come out on
I
top.
honestly think he's just too pickled. At this stage, there is just so much preservative and alcohol in his body that it's going to take an asteroid to take him out.
Yeah. All right, dude. Be well. If we don't speak to you beforehand, have a great Christmas, and
You too.
look forward to a rocking 2026.
Bring it on.
All right, cool. Thanks, Paul.
Cheers,
Okay.
Paul.
Talk to you later.
Paul, the other one, Barlow, here on Big Hairy News.
God,
Terrifying.
what phenomenal work he's been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrifying. Look, and I'll say it again. If you're a fan of Sean Plunkett's and he bitches and moans about public money, he uses public money as a way to say that can't be trusted. Well, 80% of the stories they talk about on the platform that are political, that aren't taken directly from a political party, are being provided to them by the TPU and the Free Speech Union. I don't care how you sell it, how you spin it, what you say. I would trust public money that by law you have to be able to see where it goes to who and when, over dark money with handshakes behind the scenes. I just people, you guys watching, and there may not be many crunchies watching right now, it's not our general audience. You guys watching, if you are truly and I'm going to use an American term here, the patriots you say you are, you have to stop believing this bullshit. You're falling for a lie. You're falling for an absolute grift. And actually the best ones to take down the dragon is probably the people from within. Because as long as he keeps saying woke and public money and you guys keep going woke, public money, then you're never going to get honesty, because it's bullshit. It's horseshit. It's just been demonstrated to you with the metric of research and numbers. And it's horseshit. And you need to wake up and stop being as tribal, and listen to, we want the opposite of harm for you. We want what's best for you. We want what's best for everybody. I think that's the difference between the left and the right. We want what's best for everybody, right? That includes people who sit on that side. The right wants what's best for themselves as individuals. That's sort of the difference, which means we want what's best for you, and you want what's best for you. So if either of us win, you get looked after. So why don't you let us win, and we'll look after things and you, I think. Is that right, Chewie? I can't remember.
No idea. I have well, hang on. No, I have no official comment at this time.
Anything else? Do you want to add anything to that conversation before we jump into some super chats?
No, I think we've covered everything. Let's hear from someone else.
Laura says, guys, remember to touch grass this Christmas. Are we talking like the wacky stuff or the feet on stuff?
No, I think what Kenny Berber's talking about there is that I'm going to spend a good couple of weeks scooting around the grass like a dog on my bum.
Late fee, says Vanda. Gold says 320-ish days left, 369 at moist. Also, hashtag late fee. Kaimatara says, not sure if you've already mentioned this, Paul, but Ben Thomas, who was a political commentator for News Hub, worked at the lobbying firm Exectium, the same lobbying firm Exceltium, the same lobbying firm Brooke Van Velden worked at. Sorry, Drew. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's another Ouroboros that I want closed in this country.
What was that word? Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. Yes, it's a $5 word.
Okay.
The Ouroboros is the snake that's eating its own tail. Just goes round and round forever. This sort of figure eight pattern of being a political commentator for a lobby group, then working in someone's political office, then maybe running as a candidate, then back to a lobbyist. This interaction with politicians and lobbyists of left or right.
Yep.
I'm not comfortable with how close and how omnipresent lobbyists are in this country. I mean, we can look at this government and how many lobbyists from the dairy industry, the tobacco industry, the firearms industry are part of this government. And I mean, look, if you want to be fair, look, you can include, well, I don't know. Would you count? A lobby group is different from a union.
Yeah.
They often do similar work, but they're...
Lobby groups tend to lobby for bigger interests than themselves. Unions tend to lobby for smaller interests than themselves. A union will lobby for the worker. A lobby group will lobby for the business or for the industry that business is in. So whilst they might sort of do similar things that they lobby for a group, it is pretty different who they're lobbying for and who they're fighting for. It's almost literally that the lobby groups are fighting for the CEO and the boardroom, and the union is fighting for the factory floor. It's almost literally that. So similar jobs, but different focuses. E. Grant Wright says Tova O'Brien replacing Jenny May on Breakfast. Yep, that was probably New Zealand's worst kept secret. It was either going to be her or Melissa Chan from AM show.
I thought that was an interesting choice.
Why is that?
I'm not sure where I've landed on it, but being a breakfast host with such a resume as Tova has, of being a hard political interviewer, going into an election year could be a bit of a mission statement. Maybe it's not going to be a softball.
I just hope that she is not going to do what she did with Chippy. So it's like people talk about a bias, right? Her bias in that interview seemed to be sensationalism. Like she wanted a grab. She wanted a sensationalist moment. And for people who can't remember, it was when she was showing shock that Chippy wouldn't step aside and let Winston Peters be Prime Minister. Really? What? Because when she was on Today FM, her kind of bias was just, I can nail you, and I want to get a bit like, and I don't want to say Timu Jack Tame, that's too disrespectful, but in the style of a Jack Tame, that was really more about getting to the nub of it rather than the bias. Now, could it be, because you're right, Chewy, breakfast news is not the same sort of place to have those sorts of conversations. But look, when we see John Campbell filling in on breakfast, I mean, he's got that statesmanly mana. We've seen him a few times just kind of go, yeah, no, that's not a good answer. Again, please. So it does happen on breakfast, but I don't know if it will with
spicy breakfast.
Yeah. I also think, and I thought this today, this is the problem with media, right? Stuff has lost her. I don't think from what we saw of the last interview with Chippy, it's a huge loss for Stuff. But what happens in the media world is it's very cutthroat. Like, if you get a better opportunity, you're gone. You don't show media companies loyalties at all. And it's one of the things that's always confused me most about independent media. It's like, we're committed to this and to each other and to you. And if ZB came along and made us an offer, if we couldn't take all of that with it, like if they had any sense, they'd have me and Chewy doing a Sunday night show next year for a different perspective on the world. That would be a sensible thing for them. But I don't think either of us would go, oh, yep, I'm out of here, bye, see you, bye. Whereas that happens in the media. I've had conversations down here in Dunedin with bosses when I was thinking about maybe doing some work in radio. And like one of the selling points, I was like, I'm not a 21-year-old looking to move up the ranks. I'm actually living in Dunedin. I'm from Dunedin. I'll commit to you for the next 5 to 15 years. I'm not looking for an exit, but so many people in media are looking for an exit. They're looking for the next big thing. They're looking to get that heritage position on breakfast, on ZB mornings, on Morning Report that they can just sit in for 20 years. And it's gross. It's weird, but it's very real as well. It really does happen. JC and the Pigeon Caps late fee. Peter says RNZ is undergoing enshittification. Speedlock says it's an partisan media ecosystem. Founder Sam says coalition of chaos does not care about the people. Another one from Sam. Why should we let lobbyists control the narrative? Another one from Sam. Support BHN and Pat. Donate to them if you can, as Sam's doing. Laura says, rename breakfast to It's Over with Tova. Oh, another one from Sam. People power is important to democracy. Right. That conversation with Paul was enjoyable and great, and it went for far longer than I thought we would, which is fine, but it just means we're going to keep moving. It's funny because I've got this story with Christopher Luxon. Now, Christopher Luxon skipped Q&A, and you might argue, he has to make himself available for 40 minutes and yada. And it's not really a big deal. And I wonder how Jack Tame is feeling when you see Christopher Luxon going on RNZ over the weekend. And I'm only going to play you one question, right? I'm going to play you one question, and I'll show you why I'm playing you one question. Some of the questions he did receive, though, in this 5.5-minute interview, which I'm not playing you, are you ready for these, Chewy? How are the energy levels? Deep dive in a political year. How are the energy levels? Has the recovery progressed fast enough? So the RNZ reporter was saying there has been
shit question.
But it's the narrative of it is there is a recovery, because it was, and this is word for word.
Yeah.
Has the recovery progressed fast enough? Not where is this recovery you promised us from day one, but has the recovery progressed fast enough? How are election preparations going? Really holding his feet to the fire. How are election preparations going? And the fifth question that she asked was, will you be Nationals leader at the next election? That one's, we'll let that one slide. That's okay, although there was no pushback. And then the other thing that happened was when she asked a question, literally no pushback. Literally no pushback. And the question I'm about to play you is the only question that we're going to play to give you an idea. She asks about locking people up. And the reporter says, how much is this costing the country? And I'll give you a preview. He doesn't answer, and she doesn't push back. So you wonder why Christopher Luxon won't go on with Jack Tame, but will go on with this, because this is basically a reach around. This is, I'm not going to challenge you. You the big powerful man, me the little reporter. I won't do anything. And Luxon just gets to sit there and A, talk shit, and B, spin narrative. So remember, she's about to ask him how much it's going to cost to lock all these people up. So I would like a dollar figure, please. That's what I would like. That would be the answer to this question. Listen to the answer to the question and then notice the amount of pushback from an RNZ fucking reporter.
Just changing tack quickly to law and order, you have led a crackdown. You've introduced tougher sentencing laws, gang-specific offences. You're building hundreds of new prison beds in Hawke's Bay.
Also, the narrative of this question is you are being tough on crime. Not you promised to be tough on crime, but we have a world record increase in meth use. So the other thing is the narrative or the setup of this question is all you're doing very well with being tough on crime.
The prison musters hit a new peak, 11,000 people. How much is this costing the country?
Dollar figure.
Well, actually, it's helping the country, because what it's not costing the country is victims of crime being bashed and being victims of violent crime. If you think about how we're approaching running this government, it's what's the problem, what's a common sense plan.
Sorry, I just interrupted you there, Prime Minister. You didn't answer the question.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. He'll remember this is a dollar figure. Chewy, how much did your car cost you? Well, it's the reason it hasn't cost me that is I'm driving it each day, and now I'm not taking a bus, so it's actually saving me money. No, it's not what I asked you.
Can you really put a value on how cool they look as they do a burnout through the intersection?
So we'll get to remember he's halfway through. He hasn't given us a dollar figure yet.
It's what's the problem, what's a common sense plan, and how do we get better results, and then how do people feel it? And if you think about law and order, we had massive growth in violent crime, retail crime, ram raids, all of those things. That's the problem that we had. So what do we do about it? We go after gangs because they're a big driver.
What we do is we allow meth use to skyrocket like it has nowhere else in the world. Oh, reporter doesn't ask about that. Law and order doesn't ask about that.
Ram raids, all of those things. That's the problem that we had. So what do we do about it? We go after gangs because they're a big driver of violent crime. I'm really proud. We have 38,000 fewer victims of serious violent crime. That's the murders, the muggings, the bashings, the homicides, all of that stuff we've made it, and that's come down in a really short period of time. We've had a 16% reduction in serious youth offending. We've had an 85% reduction in ram raids. Now, 2 years ago, we used to wake up every morning with 1 or 2 ram raids that had happened. And yes, we've had tougher sentencing, and yes, you're right, I think we have 1,900 extra prisoners in prison. That's our best place to rehabilitate them, but it means they're out of our community causing harm and suffering on New Zealanders, and that's what our focus has been.
Looking forward to next year, 2026.
There you go.
How are
Next
election
question.
preparations?
Didn't answer the question. No pushback. I'll remind you the question was, how much is this costing the country?
That is
word salad.
shocking.
So
She just let him run for minutes. What seemed like 20, 35 minutes of just like, just give us your manifesto. Like, why are you doing it at that point? Just give him the microphone and fuck off and have a vape or something.
I can understand and have been involved in Christmas interviews. Sometimes it frustrates people when someone will come in at the end of the year for a Christmas interview, but that wasn't that, because she asked about law and order. She asked about preparation for the next election. She asked about his leadership. This wasn't what's your favourite food for Christmas Day, which is, they're horrible interviews, but they're also valid at this time of year. A Christmas interview. That wasn't a Christmas interview because she asked those questions, but she didn't follow up at all. And so why, and this was what the question that I've posed in the show notes, why do you think Christopher Luxon would like to go on that RNZ show versus a TVNZ show with Jack Tame? Why do you think that is?
It's so obvious, though. It's so blatant. Like, he's happy to go and exchange gifts with Hoskins. He's happy to go on this softball interview, that sort of thing. But he will pointedly just string Jack Tame along for the entire year and then go at the minute, lol, guess I'm not doing it, eat shit.
Did you see that Luxon and Hosking gift giving thing?
Yes.
I'm.
What do you get the man that has everything? A fucking lanyard for his wine glass.
No, it wasn't.
And
that.
a calendar.
It wasn't. You're wrong. You're wrong. It wasn't a lanyard for a wine thing. I'll show you. Without question, and this makes me question, where does Mr. Luxon shop? It's a ball gag. Without question, it's a ball gag. It's for something, there you go, look at it. That's a ball gag. I don't care what he says it might be. The Prime Minister of our country got Mike Hosking 2 ball gags.
Imagine that's a hell of an
the
assumption that Mike Hoskins doesn't already have a ball gag. Or more to the point, Kate Hawkesby doesn't have a ball gag.
Just visualize the GIMP, right?
I don't
the
want
GIMP.
to.
No, not these guys. I mean the literal GIMP in the Tarantino film with, what's his name? Bruce?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Bruce.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
Pulp
Brucey.
Fiction. Pulp
Bring
Fiction.
out the GIMP.
Bring out the GIMP, and there would be a red ball in the middle of that, and it's a ball gag. You're never going to convince me otherwise that is, look at that on the right, on this bit here. He is holding a ball gag, and the Prime Minister got Mike Hosking a ball gag. And they received it so well, I'm intrigued as to why it was so flippant around the whole thing. Bruce Willis, thanks, Gold. See? So I was just wondering if you'd seen it, because if you hadn't seen it, then now you know. A leather ball gag from the Prime Minister to Mike Hoskins, and look how fucking happy Mike Hoskins is to get it. He knows exactly what.
That's actually my least favourite expression of emotion on Mike Hoskins. Happiness. I don't want to say it again.
We're going to move into the last story now, and it's I don't know about you guys. Like I know right now, if I go to TikTok right now, I probably shouldn't do it live in case there's any footage that shouldn't be shown. But if I go to TikTok right now, there will be dozens of videos from the events.
I've trawled through some of the footage today, and there is some very high quality footage out there because everybody's got an iPhone 17 Pro Max or a Samsung S25 Ultra or something like that. That's just a very, very good camera. There's so many different angles.
Yeah, the thing that I found, one of the things that I found scariest was, and this is one of the things, because when I first heard it, I heard Bondi shooting, right? I didn't hear, and people were saying anti-Semitic Bondi shooting, and I was waiting to see what's the actual, where's the Jewish part, because lots of people are at Bondi, but then you hear that there was an event. There was a Jewish event on in the park, and that's what they were shooting into. And the thing that made it even clearer than that was there are images and footages. Actually, you know how algorithms know what you're looking on? I don't look on the computer. I look on my phone, and my phone is doing it, but my computer's not actually finding anything. That's because I am logged in. And what was I saying? I was saying something important, really important. You weren't listening to me either, were you? Neither of us were listening to me. That's right. Because some of the footage is like from 10 meters away from the shooters. Like some of the footage,
it seems like it, yeah.
It is from the bottom of the stairs, and they're at the top of the stairs. And one of the reasons that I think you can actually go, this is much clearer that it's anti-Semitic, is they didn't give a fuck about anybody else. Like they didn't give a fuck about anyone else other than who was at the actual event. And so that was I think that just lends more credence to it being, I'm not suggesting it was ever in doubt, but a horrific anti-Semitic attack, because there was people that were literally meters from them filming them. Yes, they were secluded behind cars and stuff, but they weren't looking. Like if it was about everyone, they'd be looking around to see if anyone was close. They weren't looking. They were only looking in one direction, I mean, these are all zoomed in a bit, but I won't put the volume up. I don't know quite what it is, but if you have a look at other footages, there's people who are basically underneath this thing or underneath this bridge or behind the bridge, filming them from 10 meters away, So it just goes to show again. I mean, it's just another step in that direction, that it's just more evidence for what it actually was, a horrific attack on a Jewish community that the world over should be talking about, and is, rightfully so. Right, so let's have a look at this. Is a 3 news story from tonight, and obviously, like TVNZ covered this for 25 minutes at the start of their show. One of the things I found most concerning about the TVNZ coverage was Benjamin Netanyahu is blaming Albanese for this, because he's coming out basically talking about Albanese hasn't done enough to squash anti-Semitism in Australia, so this is his fault. Like literally blaming Albanese for this attack, which obviously is ludicrous. But let's have a look at the story from 3 News. I picked this mostly because it's 3 minutes, and I'm hoping it gives us a good summary of where we're at this evening.
World leaders, including Donald Trump, have hailed the man who disarmed one of the terrorists as a hero.
Did you see that? What a legend. I mean, what a legend. Not just to disarm him, but then not to shoot him. I imagine it would be, even if you weren't a gun person, it would be quite natural after you disarm someone to then go, I better to you, and not even to do that. What a hero.
Ahmed Al-Ahmed is an Australian father of 2 who owns a fruit shop in Sydney. Despite still being in hospital after undergoing surgery for gunshot wounds, his father says he's in good spirits. His act of bravery undoubtedly saved many lives. Senior reporter Juliet Speedy has the story.
The video
That's
now
amazing.
shared around the world. The man in the white T-shirt
clean.
lunging at the 50-year-old gunman.
Well, actually, if you believe it, maybe someone looking over him or something, because it wasn't a particularly good takedown either. I mean, if that was an All Black hitting him, he would have, he kind of wrestled a bit and luckily got the thing away. It wasn't a particularly hard hit, but what a hero.
I'll tell you what I noticed there. Yep. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that someone would have wanted to do this: is go for the shooter or go for the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now this guy sneaks up while he's busy doing something else. It basically reverse bear hugs him. His arms go around 2 different directions, and he grabs the weapon and gets it away from him as quick as possible.
Like grab them around him, sort of thing.
There's no loose gun. It's not rattling around on the ground where it can, like, maybe you'll grab it, maybe you won't. He goes straight for the danger, which is that gun. It is so clean. Like, I saw people commenting on it of like, oh, this guy's had some training. It's really? A fruit shop owner. And it's just I cannot overstate how fucking brave this guy is.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I wonder as well, like, if you, because you can look on it, reflect on it now and think about what could go through your mind. If you had some kind of training, maybe, because if it was a handgun, then actually that could be kind of spun around and fought with, but it's a really long, like long range weapon. So actually probably getting as close to the guy as possible is the right move, right? Not separating yourself from him, because you can't kind of, if it was a handgun, you could get it close, but you can't. So you just, I mean, like, he got shot after the, and some of these footage, I think you see him getting shot because he gets the gun away, then he's kind of walking back, and it looks like he falls. They're not going to show it on the news, so don't panic if you're a thing. But hitting the shoulder.
I've seen different angles of this, and sort of off behind the shooter, you have that raised bridge type structure,
like the
where the other
bridge.
shooter is with a rifle.
Yep.
So when Ahmed here goes up and grabs this guy and disarms him, he starts to run towards that structure, and the second shooter shoots Ahmed twice in the shoulder.
Yeah,
from a rifle, not a shotgun. So,
I mean,
it's been stated that he's probably got 3 bullets in him at this stage.
There's some footage as well. I don't know if it's on this. We'll come across it. There's some footage as well of them standing behind a concrete wall. It feels like they're shooting 20 meters at a guy, and the guy's just standing there. And then what happens after this one is another guy comes along and chases after the shooter once he's got no gun, and like throws a bottle at him while the dude's still up above them shooting down at him. I mean, what the adrenaline would do in you to get you to do these things, I don't know. But we'll keep going, We'll see what else we can see.
The video now shared around the world. The man in the white T-shirt lunging at the 50-year-old gunman and wresting his weapon from him. Then Ahmed Al-Ahmed points it squarely back at the gunman. Next, the father of 2 with no firearms experience places the gun against the tree and holds his hands up to surrender.
I think that was really keen.
Soon after,
as well.
he was shot by the second.
Keen? Oh, you mean so the police didn't think it was him?
So, yeah. So, Middle Eastern guy with a gun, and he's seen that they're Middle Eastern shooters. Yeah. He has put his hand up and put the gun down very, very clearly. Yeah, I think that shows pretty smart presence of mind.
Yeah, fair. We'll keep going.
Terrorist and remains in hospital.
It's the most unbelievable scene I've ever seen. A man walking up to a gunman who had fired on the community and single-handedly disarming him, putting his own life at risk to save the lives of countless other people. That man is a genuine hero, and I've got no doubt that there are many, many people alive tonight as a result of his bravery.
Bravery noticed in some of the world's highest officers.
And there's been a very, very brave person, actually, who went and attacked frontally one of the shooters.
Problem is, if the president asked him to come over to America to like congratulate him at the White House, they'd turn him back at the border, wouldn't they? That'd be the only problem.
And saved a lot of lives. So very brave person who's right now in the hospital, pretty seriously wounded.
We saw an action of a brave man, turns out a Muslim brave man, and I salute him, that stopped one of these terrorists from killing innocent Jews.
It was absolute chaos. We didn't know what was happening.
This Jewish survivor of the attack also survived the Israeli terror attack by Hamas 2 years ago.
Shit.
I survived October 7th. I lived in Israel the last 13 years. We came here only 2 weeks ago to work with the Jewish community, to fight anti-Semitism, to fight this bloodthirsty, ravaging hatred.
That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
This man is a Jewish chaplain for state emergency services in Sydney.
Once the shooting stopped, I went out, tried to help people. I was just covering bodies because there was people dead everywhere. Young, old, rabbi, they're all dead.
There will now be many questions. The father was a licensed fire.
So these stairs here, like there's someone, I've seen footage behind this tree here. That's what I'm saying. Their focus is only in one direction. They're not checking behind them. They're not going, we should keep an eye on people sneaking up on us. They're just not. Which just echoes and goes to show again how much this is 100%. Like there is no narrative that this is anything other than an attack on this Jewish community, right? Without question, because they have their focus nowhere else. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'll have a look through TikTok when we're chatting afterwards and see if I can find some of the other angles. But yeah, it's pretty shocking.
firearms holder with 6 licensed guns and was the member of a gun club.
Oh, this is the footage. Look, there's the shooter, and these guys are just standing here. This is the footage I was talking about, and he misses them. I mean, thankfully, I'm not saying that like oh, you dick, you missed. Like these guys aren't necessarily clever either.
And was the member of a gun club.
Ballistics and forensic investigation
they didn't show
will
it,
determine
but they showed other footage of that where he was shooting at them and missing.
this morning that those 6 firearms are the 6 that were licensed to that man, but also that they were used in the offence yesterday at Bondi.
High-powered rifles that caused
Go back.
It's my favourite term, Pat.
See there, look, there's a person.
High-powered rifles. You know, all rifles are high-powered.
Yeah.
Caused unimaginable damage at the peaceful Jewish gathering.
There's a woman crying next to her husband because his head was completely exploded. I mean, how am I going to consult her? What am I going to tell her? But I tell you one thing. I got these candles there, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to light them up. Because we must light up and keep the show going. We're not afraid.
Australia Tonight saying this is who we are, a brave man in a white T-shirt, not a terrorist with a gun.
Yeah. So, yeah, shocking, Chewy. Thoughts, man? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I got so many thoughts about this. Look, when I first heard that there was a shooting at Bondi, my initial feelings were that this was going to be a white supremacist attack, because Australia has a problem with white supremacy. Like, they're literally marching in the streets in Sydney and in Melbourne. And I thought that this was going to be their next move. The other aspect that it was going to be anti-Jewish or anti-Muslim, one of them. I think there's a couple of things that we can be thankful of. Obviously, the guy that decided to take action is just incredible, and everybody's commenting on him. And there's a few people saying that he'll never buy another drink in his life.
He's Muslim.
He's Muslim, so that's probably not going to happen. But Pat,
that's kind of like saying, "Oh, he'll never buy another bacon buddy again." He's Muslim. It's like,
if you could put up my screen, Pat. I just had to screenshot this thread on Reddit, because the guy's name is Ahmed Al-Ahmed. And the comments here on Reddit, in this Reddit thread, dude so nice he got the same name twice. And then someone helpfully explaining that Ahmed or Ahmet is a popular Arabic male name meaning highly praised or most commendable, or one who constantly thanks God. It's derived from the same root as Muhammad. Al is an article like the, so basically he's highly praised, the most commendable. Suits him. And then the next comment there is, sounds like he's earned himself a third Ahmet or a Medal of Honor. And I just love that series of comments. There's another thing that we can be thankful of, and this is down to the last time Australia had a mass shooting.
Port Arthur?
At Port Arthur, is that the government at that time decided to take action and limit the amount of firearms and the types of firearms that were available. And that ban has stuck. Mm-hmm. And so these guys had sporting firearms, shotguns and rifles, rather than something semi-automatic. As the news story mentioned, he was a licensed firearms holder. He had legally purchased 6 weapons. He was member of a gun club. Those are all of the things that that often get brought up by the gun lobby as like signs of a good law-abiding firearms owner. I noticed that Albanese has been talking about looking at firearms law. Their laws are quite similar to ours.
Yep.
So honestly, I don't know how much how much flex they have in their system to plug a gap. I don't think you can really plug a hole of a licensed firearms owner that is part of an organization like a gun club. You don't know what's going on in someone's mind. There's reports, and I don't know if these have been clarified, whether there were links to Islamic State or whether he's part of any groups, or if ISO over there knew that he had links. I guess we'll find that out in coming days. But yeah, honestly, I don't know if there's much that you can do here. But I know that this has really stirred up the Americans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comments of like, oh, so Australia's had this firearms ban and there's still a shooting. You know, I guess there's no point. You know, they had 3 shootings, 3 mass shootings on the same day that this happened.
Yeah.
So if their argument is this wouldn't happen in Australia if only the people had something like the Second Amendment or had more guns, your argument doesn't track, because you have those things in America and you have more shootings and you stack up dead children every single fucking day.
Yeah.
Australia's called it right in this case. And it just makes a fool of your argument. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, I think it's, again, this will become more clear over coming days. I think it's pretty obvious that this is a reaction to what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. And I think it needs to be shouted out very, very clearly, because we've got a lot of supporters here on the show, myself included, that are firm supporters of the Palestinian movement. The enemy that we have in that argument is the Israeli government, the IDF, and the movement of Zionism. It is not with the Jewish faith or Jewish people. And there will be lots of folks, agitators on both sides of this argument, that will be trying to politicize this. There is no way that we can avoid it. But you just can't let our feelings around what is happening in Gaza and the West Bank bleed on to this. It is just evil what these 2 people did. It was done to innocent people, including children. And it was lessened by a very, very singularly brave Muslim man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see now what the narrative is. Will it be Muslim attacks Jewish community, or will it be Muslim saves Jewish community? Because, I mean, not that you ever want to play politics and kind of use it for examples or whatever else. It's like the actions that brave man took kills that narrative. Now, I know it's far more important than just the narrative, but as a byproduct, it does do that as well. You've killed that idea of, probably the wrong term to use, sorry, you've stopped that narrative of this is just typical Muslim violence against Jews. Well, it's not, because, you know, you heard the report yourselves, he saved many / countless lives, you know. So horrific crimes, terrorist act was committed and people died at the hands of madmen who were Muslim, and many people, uncountable, I think they said, or the unknowable, whatever it was, lives were saved at the hands of a sane Muslim man.
I want to point out from our most recent example of something similar to this, in the Christchurch mosque shooting. After that shooting, we very clearly looked at where the shooter was from and what his background was. We didn't blame all white Australians for that shooting. It was very much the actions of one man whose mind was absolutely poisoned by a hateful ideology towards Muslims, a white supremacist that decided to put a plan into action. And I think we were quite happy to do that because that shooter looked like me. It looked like you, Pat. He was a white man. And so it was really easy to go, oh, well, you know, it's the actions of one man. He's different from us. But when you have something like this, like two Middle Eastern men, two potentially Muslim, I'd say most likely Muslim men, to go, well, it's the Muslim thing again. No, we need to treat this exactly the same as we treated the mosque shootings. This is the actions of two poisoned individuals. Whatever rationale they had in their head for this, it was fucking wrong.
If anyone says, you know, anything about Port Arthur, and this is, you know, look at Australia, they still, this is not the metric that the FBI uses for mass shootings, but the Rockefeller Institute of Government has some information here. A mass shooting is an incident of targeted violence carried out by one or more shooters at one or more public or populated locations. Multiple victims, both injuries and fatalities, are associated with the attack, and both the victims and locations are chosen either at random or for their symbolic value. The event occurs within a single 24-hour period, though most attacks typically only last a few minutes. The motivation of the shooting must not correlate with gang violence or targeted militant or terroristic activity. And this place says there's been 508 in America since 1966. Now, the FBI, I think, just listed mass shooting as there's been four or more, injuries or fatalities. So this is a different metric. But even using this metric, in America, according to the Rockefeller Institute, there's been 34 and a half down here. I have to say goodbye to Santa. Santa's in the way. Down here it says 34 and a half per year. So that's, 3 a month of this much more serious situation in the time period where there's been 0. 3 a month in America. At this upper level, remember FBI, it's much less than this, what they consider to be a mass shooting. I guess a mass shooting is different from what they're doing here. So yeah, 3 a month at this very, very serious end versus 1 in the last 35 years. I think it kind of speaks for itself. If any American tries to use this to prove something, you just need to point to either that or the FBI numbers, which go 370 this year.
I mean, I had seen a quote, and I haven't seen this reported anywhere else, so I don't think it's real. That apparently J.D. Vance said this wouldn't happen if Australia had something like the Second Amendment, which is just such a nonsense thing. I think there's a very clear difference between, say, shootings like this and the mosque shooting here in New Zealand, where you can very clearly say that's terrorism.
Yeah,
there was a political aspect to this. And something like Port Arthur or Aramoana, where that's a mental health
soul gunman thing.
Break. Yeah.
Here's some more just to show you about how the FBI do it, like a four or more. This is just, there was 1, 2, 3 on December the 14th, 1 on December the 13th, 1 on December the 10th, 1 on December the 8th, 1, 2 on December the 7th, 1, 2, 3 on December the 6th, and 1 on December the 5th. So there's in America, December. And what are we halfway through? We're halfway through it. So there's December. And if you want to know the numbers, if you scroll to the bottom, there's quite a few extra pages you can go to before you get to the end of 2025.
There was also, because there's been another recent shooting in America. I think the thing that's really stirring that up is that it happened at an Ivy League school. One news outlet over there was just interviewing random students at a university about how they felt about gun violence and school shootings. And they were just taking random vox pops. And 2 of the people that they spoke to in that piece were survivors of previous school shootings.
Yeah, I've seen that. Columbine survivors and stuff. I've seen those.
Fucking hell, that's mind-bending. Yeah. I also want to, while we're talking about this, can you put up my screen, Pat? I just saw this shared around, and I thought it was a really good piece to share with you folks. Today I was in a room full of Jews and Muslims when I found out that a gunman had shot up a Jewish event. We all shared the pain together. A Palestinian man from Gaza who happened to have moved here 2 weeks before October the 7th expressed his pain at our tragedy. Many of his family members are dead and many others are in tents now, and still he stood with us. These moments will be used to divide us. That's the whole reason that they're committed. To tear us all into different factions so one can win and the other and one can lose. Buying into that worldview hands the shooters and bigots a win by creating the world that they want. The only actual way to defeat them is to stand firm in building a world for dignity for all. This is what the Palestinian in the room did for us. It is what the Muslim man who risked his life to save Jews did. This is the way to win. This is how we beat those who want a world of division and violence.
Cool. I want to say one more thing, and then we can you can finish up and we can wrap for the night. But the one more thing is this. The only thing I will say, and for some people they might think this is the wrong time to say what I'm about to say, but we cannot allow what's happened in Australia over the weekend to then allow the focus and the blame for what the Israeli government has done in Gaza and is continuing to do in the West Bank, right? Because there will be some dishonest actors out there that will use this as a way to now say we were always right about what was happening in Gaza. That narrative will come. And we'll be really clear, and Chewie, I think you've already said this once tonight, but to be incredibly clear for everybody, right? Criticism of the Israeli government and the IDF and the actions of those two secular organizations is not criticisms of Jewish people. And there will be some people who will want to do a correlation causation thing that says, see, this just echoes all those things we've been saying all along about what's happening in Gaza and Hamas. It's not. They're different. And we call balls and strikes, yeah? This is anti-Semitism at its finest. It's literally two terrorists attacking a religious group because of them being a part of that religious group. That is not the same as what's happened, what Hamas has done in the Middle East. That is not a defense for what Israel has done in the Middle East. Israel government is secular. IDF is secular, right? They are not representatives of the Jewish faith. Criticism of the Israeli government or the IDF for their actions is not just okay, it's appropriate, and it's what we should be doing with any government committing war crimes and atrocities. Just wanted to put that on the record before people start to then go, see, told you we were right about Hamas, it will happen. Remember, and I'll say this again for people who are only catching this, we called out Hamas's actions as a terrorist act / war crime, right? We don't have to debate you on that. We also called out what the IDF did and the Israeli government as war crimes, as dictated in many, many laws, including the Geneva Convention. So before anyone goes and talks about us being supporters of terrorists over there, no. What Hamas did was a terrorist act, and it was a war crime. It may not technically be a war crime because what a war crime is, but it's a terrorist act and a war crime. And what the response was a war crime. And the people who got hurt most of all were the civilians in Gaza, followed by the civilians in the West Bank, followed by the civilians in Israel. They were the three groups that got impacted most by the actions of Hamas and the Israeli government. Chewie.
It's always civilians.
Yeah.
It's always women and children. It's always soft targets. Like that's always who's stuck in the middle between ideologies and big ideas. I don't want another news story about a mass shooting ever again.
Well, good luck with that. Speaking of news stories, tomorrow night we have Chippy with us. I don't know for how long, probably for a good half hour, maybe more. We don't have another guest yet. I've put in a few requests for Chloe. We haven't heard back from them. I will try again tomorrow. And then, of course, on Thursday night, we are wrapping up for the year of the live shows. But every single non-public holiday or weekend day that there will be content going out. We are doing best ofs I believe Emily is doing best ofs for two of the Fridays, because there's only 2 Fridays, because one of them's Boxing Day, one of them's January 2nd, I think. So they're public, so there won't be a show. But for the 6 days between Christmas and New Year's, 3 and 3, there'll be shows. And then for the 5 days following that, there'll be shows until we come back mid-January next year to really. I hope everyone gets a good rest over the break as well, because you're going to need your energy for next year, because it's going to be a slog, a super slog. So Chippy tomorrow night, I'll say this now and I'll say it again tomorrow night, because I know you all love to get involved and we love to have you involved, is a super chat doesn't necessarily mean you'll have your question or comment shown. We can't do that. We won't do that. We'll make it clear. If you want to drop us an email in the next kind of 20 hours, mail@bighn.nz. If you've got a question or a comment, we can put it in there as well. But yeah, we'll remind you of all that tomorrow night anyway. Anything else, Joey?
No, I think that covers it quite nicely.
I think it's time
there has been a lot of chatter in our Discord about us talking to Chippy tomorrow night.
Okay.
We're not going to keep everybody happy.
Of course not. Of course not. And on some level, just so you know, it is a Christmas interview. It's not only a Christmas interview. We're not going to be like, oh, what's your favorite kind of Christmas sausage roll?
What are your energy levels there, Chris?
I mean, that might be a question, but I guess the difference is it won't be the only question. So, you know, we'll see. Tomorrow night will not be a necessarily rip your guts out, get straight to it. You know, you're not going to miss this opportunity, because the good thing about, those on the left is we get access to them. Like if we had Luxon tomorrow night, maybe it would be, because we may not see him again. We'd have to do it. We're going to get to see Chippy and Chloe and Marama. And I mean, I'm going to say Debbie and Rawiri. I mean, there's turmoil there to sort out, but people within Te Pāti Māori and probably people some of the independents, we're going to see them all next year plenty. So there's not quite the urgency tomorrow to nail down every single question and have every single concern aired like there would be if it was people who don't normally come on. You get what I'm saying? We'll have a nice night tomorrow night with Chippy and ask him some interesting questions as well. All right, Whānau. Yeah.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by butchery and pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed.
I like all the fluffy questions coming in. What's he having for Christmas dinner? Who's your favourite reindeer? It's pretty funny. There's actually there's a super chat in there as well, which we'll just get out there. Act wanted more guns in New Zealand. Says 8 Buster. Thank you for your super chat. And Demo Debaking, is that what it is? Demob Darking. Thanks for your $1. Whatever.
Demob the King.
There you go. There we go. We got there in the end. All right, I'm done. Anything from you, Chewy?
Yeah, I just want to say if there's a silver lining, this will probably slam the gate on any discussions on the loosening of our gun laws with any luck.
Probably. And I'm already seeing people in the chat going, oh, be hard on them. We'll ask the appropriate questions we want, and then we'll have more next year.
You have to tune in and find out.
You'll have to tune in and find out. Catch your team. Have a good one. Hooroo.
Cheers, man.